Hey everyone, it's Jenny at JC Cards. Today I've got a fun video to share with you. I'm going to be creating these two cards and I'm using the Glimmer hot foil system from Spellbinders to create them. The products I'm using today are from Spellbinders Glimmer of the Month August 2020 set. I've been playing with the Glimmer for a while now. I actually purchased one I think about a year ago, not very long after they came out. And then recently I've been getting the Glimmer of the Month sets with some of my work through Spellbinders and playing with it quite a lot. And I decided it was finally time to actually put it on video and show you guys what it's all about. I'm not actually going to try and recreate all the tips and tricks that you can find over on the Spellbinders YouTube channel. Also, I recommend Yana's channel on YouTube. I'll link to both of them down below. They have the best educational videos for how to use the Glimmer machine. But I just wanted to tell you guys, it's so easy. It really is. Don't be daunted by the fact that you need to have an extra system. I just have mine over on the side. I leave the power cord in under my desk. And then when I want to use it, I bring it over, I pop it in, and you'll see on this video, I just bring my die cutting machine and I move the slider out of the Glimmer machine into my die cutting machine and back again. It's actually super easy. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that. It gives some gorgeous effects as well. You'll see in the close-ups a little bit later on in this video. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite foils that I have in my collection. But essentially, for those of you who are not familiar with the Glimmer hot foil system at all, it basically uses pressure and heat to impress foil into cardstock. It gives a letterpress type effect, so it's you can rub your hands over and it's kind of textured, it's embossed, almost dry embossed into the cardstock and foiled at the same time. It's absolutely gorgeous. I was just giving you a quick look there at the August 2020 Glimmer of the Month. It comes with 3 sentiments, and there's also these crafty sentiments that are an add-on. You can get those separately, which is 3 additional crafty type sentiments. They're really cool, great if you've got a bunch of card making friends like I do. And here's a quick look at some of my favourite foils. You've got holographic foils. There's a gorgeous matte gold foil. It's so classy. I'm going to show you that a little bit later on. There's this pink foil, and then my absolute favourite is the aura foil, which I'm also going to be using a little bit later. It's like holographic. There's a silver version of it as well. Absolutely love them. Now, a couple of essentials I recommend: super sharp, long fabric scissors. These are ones for cutting fabric. They're very sharp, but they cut this hot foil rolls like, as Laura Basson would say, like butter. You have any scissors that are not sharp, that aren't long, they will bunch up that foil, you will scream, and these just slide through it, just wonderful. So I think they were like $7 on Amazon. Just look for fabric scissors. They're extra sharp, so be careful, but they are perfect for cutting the rolls of hot foil. The cardstock I use. Now, this won't work for every card you use your Glimmer on, but for the ones where I'm just going to be doing foiling or adding things on top with foam adhesive, I love to use Letterpress Cardstock. This cardstock that I'm using here is brilliant white, 118 pound, Savoy cotton letterpress cardstock. It's from cutcardstock.com. I've linked to it down in the description box below. I found nothing that comes even close to the effect that you get with this cardstock. They have other cotton cardstock for letterpress as well, in navy and grey and black, and I bought a bunch of them because they just give you such a gorgeous effect when you use them with the Glimmer machine. And you might be asking, well, what's the difference between the hot foil system and my laminator using the Mink machine, for example, which I also have? And the key difference is, A, you don't need a medium to adhere the foil. So you don't need, toner, you don't need, the thermofoil paste. I love the effects they give. But the main difference for me is that you don't get that dry embossed letterpress type look with those machines. And don't get me wrong, I love both. But that's why the Glimmer hot foil machine is different. It gives you a different effect. It almost looks like professional stationery. And as Spellbinders comes out with more of the sentiment dies particularly, they're absolutely gorgeous for fancy stationery, wedding stationery. You don't even have to add any stamping or die cuts. They just look absolutely gorgeous on their own. I was actually making a card the other day. I foiled a sentiment and I looked at it and I said, I don't need to do anything else with this. It looked like it was something bought in the store. It was absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, so I've been talking a lot, haven't really been talking about what's happening on screen too much, so I apologise. This is the matte gold that I was talking about. It's absolutely stunning. I've foiled it on my cotton cardstock, and here's a close-up look at it, and isn't that beautiful? You can just about see how it's dry embossed into that cardstock. And there was a couple of areas where I got something called overfoiling. That's just where the foil kind of pushes onto the cardstock outside of where the plate is. It hasn't adhered, it hasn't dry embossed, and you can easily remove it with an eraser. I like to use this one, but any more stubborn, you can use a mono sand eraser as well. It doesn't damage the cardstock. Now here's another cool thing about the hot foil system. You can do foil on top of foil. So I've foiled that first strip from the August 2020 Glimmer of the Month, and actually that plate will cover a full A2 size card front if you use it twice. I'm actually going to take the sentiment, I just want to keep it down the left hand side, those images. I'm now going to overfoil it with some pink foil. So I've got one of the Crafty sentiments from this month's Glimmer set, and I'm just cutting it to size. You avoid overfoiling by trimming down the foil to roughly about the same size as the plate that you're using. And I'm using a tip here that I learned from Yana over on her channel, which is to add your plate first with some washi tape, almost like a hinge. So you put it in exactly where you want it, add the washi tape so it's like a hinge. You can flip it back and forward. So you flip it up, slide your foil underneath, flip it back down, and then just secure the foil itself with some washi tape. And I like to lift off some of the sticky of that washi tape just to make sure it doesn't tear my cardstock. I haven't had a problem with it yet though. And then you lay down that plate, you press the button that says timer. When it stops blinking, you pull it out and you roll it through your die cutting machine. There's no platform in the die cutting machine, it'll just roll through. And then you lift it up and look, you've got that perfect foiling. I applied a spacer plate over the top, the two plates that come with the Glimmer hot foil system itself. I know Yana and some of the other tips say to use an extra cardstock shim, but honestly, I haven't had any problems with foiling in any way that would mean that I needed any extra pressure. So it might just be that my machine is extra squashy, I don't know. But I haven't needed an extra cardstock shim. So I wasn't sure if I was going to do the little sub-sentiment in the same pink foil or not, so that's actually why I didn't do it at the same time as the main sentiment. In the end, I decided to keep this card really clean and simple, so I cut a tiny little strip of the pink foil, really good to have those fabric scissors to do that, added my hinge, popped on those plates, and then, by the way, these plates are quite hot when you lift them off. The machine does come with a rubber mat and some magnetic tweezers, I think I showed you earlier in the video. I'm terrible, I haven't used them hardly at all, and you really should. Word of caution, disclaimer, use those to make sure you don't burn your fingers, but I like to grab things, and a couple of times I did kind of go ow and drop it, but you know, overall I would recommend using the tweezers. Okay, so that finishes my first card, and you saw a close-up there of that foiling. Isn't it gorgeous? Absolutely beautiful. Now, for my second card, I'm going to do some watercolouring. So this is some hot press watercolour cardstock. It's by Arches, and I've added it to my Waffle flower mat just so it stays where it is while I create some washes over the top. I'm using my Altenew pan watercolours. This is the 36 set. I did the first initial wash, I dried it, and then I thought, you know what, I want it to do some smushing. So I added a bit more water onto my mat, smushed it in a little bit, added a bit more paint, dried it, and called it good. My actual cardstock is bigger than an A2 size card, so I'm grabbing these essential rectangles. They have some plain ones in there by Spellbinders, and I'm going to die cut that down a little bit. I do quite like to create watercolour panels a little bit bigger than I'll actually need in the end, because it gives you a bit more flexibility in terms of which areas you choose. You know, sometimes you get an area that's better than another, but you know, you can cut the cardstock the right size at the beginning if you so choose. Now I'm going to foil this Crafty plate twice this time to cover the entirety of that background. I'm using this gorgeous aura foil. It's like holographic muted gold. You can see when it captures the light how absolutely stunning it is. Just gorgeous. I've added my hinge at the top. This is a very heavy plate, so that hinge could do with being a little longer, to be honest with you. It does fall off a couple of times. Why do we add the hinge? If you look at the tips on Yana's channel, essentially the hinge is almost like the same thing you get when you use a MISTI when you're stamping. It gives you that freedom to make sure that if it doesn't foil perfectly the first time, you can get your plate in exactly the same place, add another bit of foil, and then redo it, and it will fill in any gaps. I actually didn't need to do any double foiling on any of the cards I made today. They all foiled perfectly, and giving you some close-ups here, how gorgeous that looks. I'm using the hot press cardstock because it's less textured. You can absolutely use cold press, but that's what that hinge technique is for, and just in case, because it's more textured, you might need to run it through one more time with some more foil if there are any areas that don't quite foil perfectly because of that textured surface. I've trimmed off the excess foil on this second go through. It's really easy to line up, and I did flip it round just so that it didn't look like a perfectly repeated pattern. And look at that, isn't it gorgeous? Oh, it's so, you know, it's like my favourite, this holographic aura foil. Absolutely gorgeous. And what you can't quite see in the video is how textured it is. You rub your hands over that, you can feel that pattern. Now, if you get any foil in your stash, other than, you know, gold and silver, you have to get the black. Why is that? Well, I showed you the overfoiling with the pink over the matte gold earlier on, but how many times do we stamp sentiments in black ink? Get the black foil, it's the same concept. So I've got this super bright and busy and holographic and watercoloured background. I just want to add a black sentiment in the middle. Maybe white, get some white foil as well. But I wanted to go for black this time. So I'm cutting a bit of this black foil out. It's not super shimmery or anything like that, but it will directly overfoil on top of any of the foiling that you've already done, which other than stays on ink, I don't think there's anything else you could actually do to stamp directly over the foiling. It's worth trying, but also the sentiments that you get in this set and some of the other sentiment sets in the Glimmer hot foil plates, just fantastic. And if you want to do those over the top of some of your foiling, that black foil is just perfect. There were a couple of areas where it had gone over the aura and it hadn't quite completely covered it. I just grabbed a Copic marker. You could grab a Sharpie, and I filled it in. You couldn't even tell the difference. Now I'm using these Nestabilities Essential Labels dies. I love these. There's rectangles, there's circles, there's squares, and these are the labels that add a few dots. They don't cut it out. They do come with frames that you can also use to cut out the outline if you so choose, but they just add a little bit of interest. So I've die cut that out of the center. I'm backing it onto some black licorice cardstock that I've trimmed just slightly bigger than the panel of watercolor cardstock, and then I'm adhering it directly over the top. Be sure not to add any adhesive behind the dots themselves. They're little windows, and they'll show whatever color of cardstock, whether it's white, black, any other color, they'll show through from behind. So it's a great way to add a ring of different colored dots to complement your card. And then I'm just going to pop that up on some black foam, craft foam, onto a white note card. And here's a look at both of the cards that I've created today with the Glimmer machine, with the same set. Look very different. I had so much fun. I had so much fun playing with this. You guys have to get one of these. I'm telling you, you have to. Just, you have to. Anyway, I hope to have more Glimmer hot foil system videos for you in the future. Full disclosure, I was sent the August 2020 set from Spellbinders, but I did purchase the Glimmer machine myself. I do love it, and I wouldn't talk about it, how much I love it, if I didn't. So I hope you've enjoyed, and it gave you some tips and tricks. If you've got a Glimmer machine, I do hope that you enjoy playing with it. Be sure to get it out onto your desk and have a play. That's all from me for today. Have a lovely day. Bye.